Good day, Crime Talk aficionados, and thank you for tuning in to our live edition on Saturday here for Crime Talk. We will be discussing whatever you all would like to do. We'll be taking our questions from the chat. If they're highlighted, I guess, what do they call it? Through Super Chat, we'll obviously answer all of those questions, but we will try to answer any question that pops up in the live feed here. So we'll do that. Good morning to everybody. Hope you all had a great week. And then we also, yesterday, the Vallow story was kind of taking off. And I think that's going to be a big story just as things go, because if anyone saw Lori Vallow in court yesterday, her demeanor was simply that of someone who seems very inconvenienced by having to go through this whole process of being extradited back to Idaho. She just seemed like she was rather annoyed that she even had to be there. And why are these people not letting me go back to my home on Kauai? It's going to be very, I think, interesting to see how this plays out. Whether the children are alive or deceased, or are they a relative? Why doesn't she just say? Now, obviously, common sense tells you that there's the children, something probably very bad has happened to them, and that's the reason why she's simply not saying, oh, go talk to Uncle Joe there at his house, or something along those lines. Not to mention the kind of trail of dead bodies that seem to be following Lori Vallow, along with her new husband as well. And just as a quick kind of recap of the maybe timeline here for the Vallow incident. So Charles Vallow was the obviously husband of Lori Vallow. And he filed for a divorce in February of 2019. They were living in Arizona, and obviously they were the legal parents of Joshua, J.J. Vallow, 7, and Tylee Ryan, who's 17. Now, it appears as though J.J. was pulled from school on about March 7th, and everyone basically thought that, Lori Vallow had lost her mind, was going crazy, and for lack of a better term, had simply just lost it. Then back in June of 2019, JJ is re-enrolled at this Life Academy, basically saying that, he needs to take summer classes and the family's back in Arizona. Then things start to get a little weird. In July of 2019, Charles Vallow, the husband who had filed for divorce, is shot to death in Chandler, Arizona, by Lori's brother, Alex Cox. Now, Cox says that he apparently shot Charles in self-defense, and that's, things happen, I guess, right? Happens all the time. Then you have Lori Vallow on July 11th, the same day that her husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband, now deceased husband, is gone. She apparently threw a pool party the same day that her husband was shot and killed. Now, on August 30th of 2019, Colby Ryan, which is Tylee's older brother, tells police that she last spoke to Tylee via FaceTime on August 30th. He also tells detectives that after August 30th, Lori would give excuses as to why Tylee couldn't talk to him. Then on August 30th as well, JJ's service dog is picked up by a dog training facility in Arizona at Lori's request. Guess didn't need the service dog anymore. Then on September 5th, JJ is pulled from Arizona school again, and Vallow is telling everybody that basically family got a promotion in California and they needed to leave immediately. And that's kind of where things are progressing. And then August-September timeframe, the family supposedly moves from Arizona to Rexburg, Idaho. And that was between late August, early September. And they moved from Gilbert, Arizona to Rexburg, Idaho with her children, Joshua Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Now, September 8th is the last time Tylee Ryan is seen in public, according to Rexburg police, and she's seen at the entrance of the Yellowstone National Park where the family is taking a trip. And then September 17th of 2019, a doorbell camera records JJ outside in Rexburg, but that's the last time he's been seen. September 19th, a babysitter in Rexburg tells police she watched JJ Vallow on September 19th. And then September 23rd, 2019, that's the last time JJ is last seen attending school in Rexburg, Idaho. It's discovered on October 1st of 2019 that Lori Vallow rents a storage unit in Rexburg and is seen on video visiting the unit multiple times throughout the month. And when police searched that storage unit, they found school book items, schools or bikes, etc., things that obviously kids would generally need or want if they were going to school. And then October 2nd, Brandon Bordeaux was the ex-husband of Lori Vallow's niece, Melanie Bordeaux, says he was shot in a drive-by shooting, and Brandon says the shooting was Alex Cox, and he was driving Charles Vallow's Jeep. Now, October 19th of 2019, Tammy Daybell, she's the wife of Vallow's new husband, Chad Daybell, and she dies in Idaho, and the coroner originally declares the cause of death as natural causes, and then she's buried a few days later. November 1st, police begin surveillance of Lori Vallow, and they report never seeing Joshua Vallow once during the month of November at all. Then November 5th of 2019, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow get married in Hawaii. November 26th of 2019, the Rexburg police said they received a request for a welfare check on Joshua Vallow at the home in Rexburg, and after arriving at the home, officers say Lori and Chad tell officers the children are with family in Arizona. Now, of course, they wouldn't say which family members so that they could, make sure that make sure the children were okay. Now, November 27th of 2019, a search warrant. So after the police are not located in Arizona, police return to the townhouse, with a search warrant to find Joshua, with an attempt to find Joshua Vallow. Officers say they find the house empty and learn after further investigation that Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell had left Rexburg, possibly without the children. And police also searched other homes in the Rexburg area looking for the children in a storage unit that they had previously rented. Now, December 1st, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell fly from Los Angeles to the island of Kauai, and neither of the two children that are missing are with them at all. December 6th, family friends in Arizona tell police that both Lori and Chad had asked her to lie to tell officers that Joshua was with her. The friends say she declined to participate in that request. Now, in December of 2019, Tammy Daybell's body is exhumed so that further investigation can be done to determine the cause of death. And then December 12th of 2019, Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, dies at home in Gilbert, Arizona, and the cause of death has not yet been released. December 20th of 2019, the police go public with their search for the children because they're having no help whatsoever trying to locate these children. And so, there's a whole lot of weirdness going on with this. Obviously, you've got the children that can't be found. You have friends that are being asked to lie for them, to say that the kids are with them. And then on top of that, you have the parents that are unwilling to cooperate whatsoever with the police authorities. Now, obviously, everyone has a right under the Constitution of right against self-incrimination. And if that's the case, certainly they can do that. But at a certain point, people are going to say, "Where's the children?" What type of a mother wouldn't say, "Oh, these are my children," and this is where they are, and they're healthy and they're safe. And as a mother, we've talked about this throughout nature, not just humans. Mothers protect their children. That's just the way things are. And so it's just weird that she hasn't been able to produce the children or say where they are or why she hasn't been able to say anything. So then December 21st, the Rexburg, Idaho police asked for the public's help in locating Lori Vallow and Chad DeBell because they would like to question them in regards to their children's disappearance. Rexburg police updates the public on Facebook and that they know the location of if anyone knows the location of the children, to let them know, but the Vallows have refused to cooperate in any way. In January of 2020, the credit card that Lori Vallow used to rent the storage unit is declined, and that's tied to obviously paying the bill, and police, the storage unit now has the opportunity to sell the items in there. The deputies executed a search warrant of Chad DeBell's home in Fremont County, Idaho on January 3rd. No word as to that. January 7th, a $20,000 reward is offered by the children's grandparents for any information leading to their information. January 16th, the state of Idaho files a protection order for Madison County on behalf of the children, ordering Lori Vallow to produce them. And as you may recall, the Vallows Lori Vallow was in Hawaii, and they were served the court order by the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, and that they had to produce the children within 5 days. On January 26th, the police executed a search warrant on Lori Vallow and their SUV, finding numerous things that they believe belonging to the children. They were looking for birth certificates and things of that nature. The grandparents on January 29th requested temporary guardianship, but of course, obviously, there's no children to be there. January 30th, the deadline to produce the children goes by, and nothing happens. February 16th, the Vallows, Lori Vallow and DeBell, they go for a little day trip from Kauai to Maui. And people obviously know they're under investigation, but they're acting like they have no worries. And February 20th, Lori Vallow is arrested in Kauai, multiple charges, including desertion and non-supportive dependent children. And she was obviously arrested. The bond is currently set at $5 million. At a bond hearing yesterday, her attorneys argued for a reduction to $10,000. And they also requested an extradition hearing. She is fighting extradition. That was set for March 2nd at, I believe, 9 a.m. Hawaii time. And at that point, the prosecutor will have to bring over the detectives from Idaho to basically say that they have enough information to believe that she's involved in a crime and to extradite her. Usually, they have 90 days to do that. Briefly mentioned yesterday, what happens is if somebody has a warrant, they're out of state, and they fight extradition, then the state that wants them literally has a fancy piece of paper. It has the governor's signature on it, goes to the Secretary of State, basically certifying that that's the governor and that all the documents they're attaching are true and accurate. Then they send it to the state. In this particular case, it would be Hawaii. The Hawaii governor will take a look at it, review it, and say, yes, I believe that this is a valid request for the person, the individual that they are looking for, and that a crime has been committed. And then the governor warrant is signed off in Hawaii. And then Idaho has to come pick her up. Now, Ms. Vallow will get an all-expense-paid trip back to Idaho at that particular time if she remains in custody. What's going to take place on the 2nd is that they're going to basically also have a hearing to determine what her bond should be. Right now, it's at $5 million. She wants $10,000. Her attorney stated yesterday she has no passport, so obviously she can't leave the United States. But if she's out, she could obviously get on a boat and start floating away somewhere. And also yesterday in court, she completely looked like she was inconvenienced and annoyed for having to do this. And why is anyone even bothering with this whatsoever? So I think that's going to be an interesting case to follow as it develops. I think the whole trail of dead bodies, maybe it's just a coincidence, that her ex-husband is now deceased. The children are suspected gone and deceased. And obviously everyone is given the presumption of innocence here in Crime Talk. But her ex-husband is killed by her brother. Her brother dies of mysterious causes. The new husband, his wife dies of mysterious causes, and they're now conducting that investigation. And everybody just keeps acting like it's no big deal. And why is anybody, bothering? So it's going to get interesting for sure. All right. So that's a quick little recap of the Vallow case. And, Missy, I just saw here in the comments, that's her fifth husband. Yeah. She has got a trail of husbands, that for sure. And she also thinks she's God because she's in apparently some sort of cult end of world group that thinks the end is near, and basically I guess she can do what she wants. But we'll see. Let's see here, Jennifer Madison. I say coincidence, like the other true crime cases. Everything turns out to be a coincidence. Yeah, there are no coincidences in life. What do they say? There's no coincidence in politics. When it comes to true crime, there are no coincidences either, right? It's going to be, like I said, I just think it's the kind of case where it just goes against human nature, where people won't say where their children are to make sure that they're safe. But, you never know. We're given the presumption of innocence. Maybe we'll all look really silly looking back on this and say, oh, there the kids are. But I would imagine that just about every family member or known acquaintance of Miss Vallow or her husband would have been contacted by now. I'm sure the Idaho, the police there in Idaho have talked to just about everybody. So, we'll see. It's kind of an interesting thing because we've talked about this, not only in Patrick Frazee matter and other cases, is how do you move forward when you don't have, a body? One of the things you have to show, obviously, is that the person is dead. So unless you have an eyewitness to the death of the individuals like they did in the Patrick Frazee matter, it's hard to, confirm that you actually have a deceased person. And the defendant has no burden to produce anybody. So it's just, it's hard for the government to come forward and do that type of thing. And it seems like just by the Ms. Vallow's conduct in court yesterday that she really doesn't care. She has no concern whatsoever. And like I said, she looked completely indignant that she had to even be in court, and now she wasn't going to have to wait basically another 2 weeks until she can have anything resolved on the bond. I don't think the judge in Hawaii is going to reduce her bond from the $5 million to $10,000 at all. But we'll see. And we'll see if, maybe somebody steps up and thinks this woman has been completely wrong some way and, maybe help her out with legal fees. I mean, they're living on Kauai. If anyone's ever been to Hawaii, it's rather expensive to live there. And apparently they have a home. So, who knows? Maybe DeBell has resources and they're just, not worried about it. The husband had made arrangements to have private counsel there yesterday. She didn't have the public defender standing next to her. So, we'll see. We'll see if those resources run out, and we'll also see if the husband gets charged with the death of his ex-wife now that she's been exhumed. But the fact that she has been deceased, and unless there are samples saved from the original autopsy, it'd be unlikely that they're going to find a whole lot of anything else in there. And if it's the same coroner doing the autopsy, most people don't like to say that they made a mistake, but maybe he will. Maybe they have another coroner looking at it, forensic pathologist, to see what's going on. Let's see here. Questions. Looks like Tina question. Any info on Cody Taylor, who was the person who killed Faye Swetlik, and why he did it? I'll be honest with you. I have not seen any information about that individual at all. Cody Scott Taylor. He obviously, on the Faye Swetlik matter, was a neighbor. And when I say neighbor, he lived in the same neighborhood. I don't think they were actually right next to one another. But they ultimately found in his trash can items of evidentiary value, which led them to go back and search the area. And then they find him in a close proximity where he had obviously taken his own life. And if that's not consciousness of guilt, we've talked about that. That's like the ultimate consciousness of guilt when you are under charges and things like that. Now, oftentimes people say, "Hell, the pressure's so great, no one's going to believe me. I'll just, commit suicide." But the fact that that Cody Scott Taylor, they apparently have some evidence to link the death of Faye Swetlik to him. Basically, case is closed. But it's terrible. Terrible situation. I don't know why. I just don't get that. And I've represented lots of people that have been accused of doing lots of things to children, and some people have been innocent. And some people you just do not understand what they were doing and why they would do that. So let me know if you have any questions. Basically, it'll be Ask Scott today. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So here, if you're tuning in and you haven't done so already, hit that little subscribe button. We're like 20 people away from 75,000 subscribers. Now, I don't know if people appreciate. I certainly know I do. It's hard to get people to subscribe to one's channel. You have to put out, hopefully, good content that people keep coming back to and want to see. I think a lot of people just live in the false impression that if you start a YouTube channel, suddenly you're quitting your day job. Everybody has tens of millions of subscribers, and you're making all kinds of money. Completely not the case. A lot of time, effort, planning goes into it. Equipment. If you look back to our videos when we first started, it was pretty, crude and rudimentary. And, fortunately we have Kyle here who helps put a lot of this stuff together, if not all of it, that makes me look good. But, obviously he doesn't work for free. So, I can't quit my day job just yet. So completely appreciate everyone who has subscribed, and if you haven't done so, please do so. Let's see here. Scott, do you have a YouTube video of you defending someone in court? Curious to see you in your element. Well, obviously here in Colorado, you can't videotape yourself in court, but we do have a video that we put up where ABC News followed me around. This was many, many years ago, where it was a child abuse resulting in death case, and they followed both prosecution and defense preparing for the case, and in a very unique thing that they had to get permission from the Colorado Supreme Court was that they allowed the videotaping of that jury doing their deliberations. And it was rather interesting to see, how juries, make their choices. I mean, there's lots of compromising that takes place. People don't live in a vacuum, and when they go to jury service, they take their life experiences with them. And in that particular case, it was clear that some people didn't trust the police. Some people, figured that this individual came from a very rough lifestyle, and that's just the way she handled things. It wasn't anything unusual for her. So I can't think of the name of the video off the top of my head, but it is there. It was in the jury room, but it's one of the videos there where it's the entire episode that was aired on ABC. Let's see here. Rhonda Russell, what is that metal thing behind you? That metal thing behind me is a propeller blade, and it's polished. So I don't know. One time I saw a propeller blade that was polished, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I should find me one of those. And I looked at the price, and it was ridiculous. And so through somebody I knew or met out at the airport where I keep my plane, they said, oh, you should go talk to so-and-so over at this maintenance shop. They have all these propellers just sitting there because obviously they're replaced. So he gave me a deal on a bunch of them. I took them to an individual to polish them up, and that is the final project, the final result of the polishing. And I like it. I've got one in my conference room here as well. I have one at home. I just think they're very cool. I've got two more. Maybe we should do a giveaway one day. Who wants a propeller blade? Hold on a second. See, we have two more of these bad boys. Maybe we could do a contest or something someday to give away the blade. If you're not a pilot, some people don't get it, but I think they're really cool. And well, that's just me. Let's see here. Someone asked if Hawaiian PD questions Lori without an attorney would come back and bite them. Well, that's an interesting question. All right, let's talk about that. So what happens if the police go and question somebody and that they know that the the person is represented by an attorney? Well, hopefully that person would say, I'm represented by an attorney, talk to my attorney. In that particular case, the police should stop questioning completely. Now, of course, like all things in life, every case is different, and there's been a huge development in the case law that said, well, the police came and talked to him, and he said, I have an attorney. But did they really say, I want my lawyer? Did he say, I want my lawyer right now? Do I need a lawyer? Should I talk to my lawyer? Those types of things. And so the case law is developed. Now, if the police know that you're represented by an attorney, they should not go talk to you. But let's say they do. What's the remedy? Well, the remedy is that information would be suppressed. There would be a motions hearing. The judge would decide the legal issues on the case and determine that the questioning was improper. But they would go through the analysis of, well, were they in interrogation? Were they in custody? Did they say they really want an attorney? Because I cannot tell you how many times when somebody gets arrested and the police want to talk with somebody, they go and interview the individual at the jail. And usually the defendant will say, well, I didn't tell him anything. I just wanted to know what was going on. And of course, I always have to ask then, well, how long was this conversation of you not telling him anything, the detective, what was going on? And usually it's good 45 minutes, an hour or so of not talking to them, okay? And it's always, like I said, in 25 years of experience, it's always the defendant's own words that come back to bite them. If, Ms. Vallow had an attorney, they should have honored that and respected that. But they could say, well, it's for a completely different reason, and it depends. There's so many circumstances. If the police in Kauai are executing a search warrant where they're looking for things of evidentiary value, there may be some little back and forth. And then it really becomes, were they looking for incriminating responses? Because most people don't get this, and I probably answer this question about 5 times a week with clients and potential clients that call. they'll say, well, the cop did this and they never advised me of my Miranda rights. I'm like, okay, but were you in custody? Well, no. He said I could walk out at any time. Was he questioning you? No. Basically, they showed up and they just arrested me. That was it. They didn't read my Miranda rights. Well, they don't need to be advised of Miranda rights. Only if you're in custody, okay? And in custody doesn't necessarily mean handcuffs behind your back, sitting at the police station. It could be that you're saying, hey, can I go? Can I walk away from this contact with the police? And if they say, no, you can't leave, or you feel as though you can't leave, then you may, in fact, be in custody. And if those questions are being asked looking for an incriminating response at that point, then the police have to Mirandize you. And if those statements are inculpatory and they, are bad for you, and obviously the police want to use them and the district attorney wants to use them in court, you have to file a motion to suppress and then determine whether they are admissible or not. If they are suppressed, if they were retained illegally, then they cannot be used in the prosecution's case in chief. Now, if the defendant gets up and testifies in court and says, well, this is what happened, the police can then use what he's told them previously for impeachment purposes and say, no, that's not what you said. You're basically being untruthful. The only exception to that is if the court found that there was some sort of physical coercion, or in cases of psychological coercion. In those particular kind of situations, the statement is out completely and the prosecution can never use it even for impeachment type purposes. And for physical violence, I mean, you don't hear about those type of cases where they, beat the police up because most everything's on video these days. But, 20 plus years ago, people would say, man, the cops beat me up. They threw me against the wall. I was in there. They scared the hell out of me. I felt like I had to do it or they were going to harm me. That kind of stuff happens. I think with less frequency in the age of video surveillance. I had a case once where an individual was accused of doing some very bad things, and this individual had never been in trouble before. It was kind of just an ugly type of situation, but the police officers were like, we want to give you the help you need. The first way to do that is kind of like you have to admit you have a problem before we can get you the help. And then we'll do everything we can. Well, obviously, the police officer can't get anybody help. He was using that as an interrogation technique to manipulate the individual to get him to confess. And the court found in that particular situation that psychological coercion was used, given his mental state at the time. He was completely distraught. The promises of future help from the police that he had no authority to do, and that he was going to, put in a good word for you, in this case is presented to the district attorney. Court threw that out completely, and the client could have got up and testified to whatever he wanted, and they could not have used that statement at all. Now, put me in a weird ethical situation. He ultimately did not testify, but what he had told the police was basically the truth. And obviously, as a defense attorney, and I know a lot of people don't believe this, you cannot put up testimony if it's perjured testimony. So if he had said, I want to exercise my right to testify, and gets up there and tells his story, and I know that it is a complete fabrication, then I'm in an ethical dilemma, and I would have to then basically talk with my client, ask him to fix what he has said. And if he refuses to do that, then I would have to ask the court to withdraw for an ethical conflict. And at that point, everybody would know what was going on. But as an attorney, we cannot put up a client that's going to lie and suborn perjury. It just simply cannot happen. And I know lots of people think, attorneys are horrible human beings and they'll lie and they'll do everything. And I can tell you, are there bad attorneys? Yes. I've told clients this, like, hey, you're a nice guy, or you're a nice lady, but I assure you, you have not paid me enough money for me to lose my license, and I'm certainly not going to jail for you of any kind. And I tell that to the attorneys that work for me as well, that I've never been a client worth going to jail for, and I've never been paid enough money to jeopardize my law license. And I believe that, most attorneys follow that same rule. I mean, you spend a lot of time and effort getting that law license. It's kind of a golden ticket. You don't want to use it, and you certainly don't want to blow your credibility that you have, both personally and professionally, by doing something stupid for a client. And everybody's been there when you're younger. You're trying to, make your bones for yourself, kind of pushing it, trying to, do things. And it's just not worth it. It's just simply not worth it. Scott, have there ever been other cases of felony desertion and non-supportive dependent charges? I'm sure there have been. I mean, normally laws are put on the books because there's a circumstance that comes up and it's probably not covered by a particular statute that already exists. So the legislature then drafts it, and obviously then the district attorneys have that in their kit bag of resources to use when the situation arises. Let's see, Michelle. Scott, would you represent a New Mexico case? I've actually done a federal case in New Mexico. It was an interesting one for sure. It was a huge case they had. And I was actually asked by a former district attorney who left here and went down there to practice law, and asked me to come down and co-counsel. It was a good little thing, other than it resolved short of a 1-month trial that was going to take place in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is a nice place. Good Mexican food down there for sure, and everything comes with green chili. I was completely the odd person out when I said, "Can I get my green chili on the side, please?" So let's see here. Would you represent anyone that needs his services and can afford them? Scott, would you represent anyone that needs your services? Yeah, for the most part. If people can pay, or if we were appointed by the court, I represent just about everybody. I've only had one person that literally, the client was acquitted, but it was absolute torture, and I just wanted to get through the matter, and I swore to my staff at the time that we would never represent this individual ever again. And then this individual got in trouble again, and another attorney called and said, "Hey, this particular client would really like you to be on this case again because you did such good work." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. And the guy said, "What would your retainer be?" And I said, $1 million. And he kind of chuckled. And I said, No. I'm serious. The retainer is $1 million, because this particular client was the biggest pain in the ass that I had ever experienced. And that would only, the $1 million, even then, I would probably still second guess my judgment at night. I would never take that person on ever again. So anyway, let's see here. Brazilian go, of course it is worth the risk. Jose Baez is the biggest example of that. And I understand people think, Jose Baez, and like I said, I don't know the man. We've chatted briefly at some conferences. I mean, very, very briefly. He probably wouldn't recognize me or my name, so I don't want to make it sound like we're even there. However, just because a defense attorney wins for his client doesn't mean that he did something unethical. The attorneys that really do well, they're the ones that understand the rules of evidence. Okay, the rules of evidence are the rules that you play by when you go to court, and it doesn't matter what somebody did. It only matters what the prosecution can prove. How are they going to get the evidence in? Okay, and it's kind of like a lot of things in life. There's a difference between belief and knowledge. What you believe happened, and then there's knowledge. What do you know happened? And that's two different things. And if you had to go to court to, to prove something, you have to ask yourself, what evidence am I going to have? What eyewitnesses am I going to have? And a defense attorney can literally sit there and do nothing the entire case and get up and say, defense rests, and get up and argue and say the prosecution has failed to meet their burden of proof. That's all you have to do. Get up and argue that. And you can argue all the reasonable inferences drawn from the evidence or the lack of evidence. And jurors are not dumb people. Jurors are smart people. I would never criticize a jury for the decision that they made. I've said this before. They are the ones that sat through all of the evidence. They are the ones that were able to sit and judge the credibility of those witnesses. And then to go back and collectively talk about a matter and say whether the prosecution has proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. And not just, well, we think they did it. Well, they probably did it. They're close to getting me there. No, it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a huge standard. And so I get it. People don't like it when there's bad cases and people are accused of doing bad things. But don't blame the defense attorney. The people that you should look towards and say you have failed is the prosecution. That's it. Okay? They're the ones that carried the burden. The burden never shifts to the defense. And if they fail to prove their case, it's not the defense that should be criticized or have public scorn. The prosecution is the one that failed to prove their case. Classic case, O.J. Simpson. I think most people would probably say that they think that O.J. did it. Well, the jury said, no, you didn't prove it. Was it the defense side? I mean, they were poking holes in it. That's their job. Their job is to test it. Cross-examination, the confrontation clause, has been identified or stated to be the greatest truth-seeking tool ever created. Because if you didn't have cross-examination in a case, whether it's a defense witness being cross-examined or a prosecution witness being cross-examined, they would just get up there and it's like, okay, that's it. It must be true. But you have to remember, the prosecution is advocating for basically their client, the people of the state that they reside in. The defendant has an obligation to advocate for his particular client. And through that process of the state saying this happened and the defense saying it didn't happen or it didn't happen this particular way, you ultimately come to the truth. And whether you like it or not, the people that decided the case are the ones that heard it all and decided it all, and they're the ones that have to live with that decision. And it's easy to sit there, behind, you're reading the newspaper, sitting behind a keyboard saying, man, if I was a juror, I would have found him guilty. But until and if you've actually sat there and said, I realize that my job as a juror is to find out, make a decision on what facts, did it happen or not. That's really what it is. It's not really a question of whether somebody's a good person or a bad person. Let's face it, good people make mistakes all the time. And nobody wants to be judged by their worst mistake. They like to have their collective body of good things kind of thrown in there. But that's not relevant in most trials. What's relevant is prosecution says you did A. Did you do A? That's what juries decide. But they also know that there's consequences. They know that the jury verdict is going to have consequences one way or the other. Does this person go to prison? Do they go to prison for the rest of their life? Does it result in a death penalty? And until somebody's actually been there to say, this person, deserves it, or they, just going to judge the case based upon, what the client is wearing or how they look at the defense table. I mean, that's just, I hope those people never sit on a jury. And I've had potential jurors sit up and literally say, well, as soon as I walked in, I saw the defendant and I thought, whatever. And he says, I don't think I'd be fair and impartial. I've had jurors sit up and say, they'll get up and say, I can't be a fair juror because I'm a racist. I hate particular people of a particular nationality. I swear to God, I've seen jurors do that. And my first response is, wow, I hope that person never needs a jury, because whether it's you, a family member or close friend, at some point during your life, you will know somebody who has been charged with a crime. It could be simple as a DUI or something much more severe, all the way up to a homicide case. Bad things happen. People can get in a car, go have a couple of drinks, think they're fine. They get in an accident, they kill somebody, they're going to prison, for a vehicular assault. Those kind of things can happen, so quickly. So don't be so harsh to judge everyone. Yes, are there people that are bad people and basically we know, they've confessed that they did bad things? Absolutely. But what separates our system of government to some, other systems in the world is that we have due process. And even if the case is slam dunk, that person is still entitled to a trial. It may take a week or two, but guess what? What is supposed to happen in most cases normally does happen. The truth comes out, but you have to go through that process, because if we allow if we allow guilty people to be railroaded by the government, then the government will start doing it to innocent people as well. Because why? They think they can get away with it. If we don't give due process to the guilty guy, they think, well, we can just, ram it through on the guy that maybe they just don't like him. Maybe he's just been a pain in the side for everybody. Those kinds of things, it makes a difference. Due process is there for everybody. And those little old defense attorneys, those public defenders down there every day representing and, clients that nobody likes, the despised and the damned, and standing up there and say, hey, judge, hey, state of wherever, government, you can't do that. That's not right. That's not the law. That's the only check. And that check protects everybody out there. So if it is ever you or a family member or friend sitting there, they know that they can't get away with it because somebody's going to call them out on it. So I like to say, as a defense attorney, we get up every day and defend the Constitution, not just for individual clients, but for everybody. And think about it. The government gets up every day. There's limitations on them. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments is a limitation on government authority. When has anyone in the government ever got up and said, wow, if we do this, we're going to be exceeding our authority under the Constitution? Never. They try to get around it to expand their power. But for defense attorneys out there saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that search. That is unreasonable under the Fourth Amendment. They would continue to just take and take and take. Nobody in power ever tries to give up their power, at least not voluntarily. So they're going to fight to bitter end to expand it. Oh, I've been told that we are one subscriber away from 75,000 subscribers. Wow. So if somebody out there is watching, is not a subscriber, just go ahead and hit that little button, okay? It's just kind of a big milestone. I mean, somebody did it. Apparently, Kyle, our intrepid producer here, has told us that we have hit the 75,000 subscribers. Can you believe that? Wow. I was kind of hoping, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd wake up and I would check my phone like I did, and we weren't there. We were like 60 away. So we were, thank you. I mean, like I said, it's in the big picture, it really just doesn't matter. But we try to take, very seriously to put out good content every day, stuff that's interesting, hopefully educate people, about something, to provide some information from somebody that does this kind of work in the criminal area, not just simply to say, oh, somebody's a bad person. Oh, I'd like to think we just call it the way it is here. If the prosecution screws up, we'll say that. If the defense screws up, we'll say that. Those are the facts. Facts can't be changed. They are what they are. So we'll see what we're doing. That's right. Unbiased, fact-driven. That's what we're shooting for. All right, let's see if there's any other questions here. I got kind of off on a little tangent there. And the lovely Miss Kristen was sitting over there, and I could see her rolling her eyes like, oh, I've heard this a zillion times. Without all of you. Yeah, that's true. I think at 100 you get the official YouTube plaque. That would be kind of cool too. But that's all right. We'll just keep doing this, plugging along. It just takes time, and who knows? Maybe someday we will be able to quit our job, and we could literally have, the Crime Talk network, where we could literally have cases going on all the time and have people talking about cases all the time, and having interaction with all the people out there that truly do follow this. Because one thing I've noticed about people in the true crime genre is that they're very smart people. They're very inquisitive, and they ask great questions, and they truly want to seek the truth. And obviously that's the thing that as an attorney, what you're supposed to do is to be, obviously you're an advocate for your client, but as an advocate of your client, you always are thinking about what's the best argument that the other side has, so that you can best advise your client and anticipate what they're doing. As I tell people, your job as a lawyer, I tell my attorneys, is it's tough sometimes not to get like emotionally involved in a case because you'd like to win, or the district attorney is a jerk and you'd like to show them whatever. You have to, you have to remove yourself from the emotion of the battle. Literally try to look at it like, okay, let's look at it from 10,000 feet up, not down in the weeds when you're, fighting and jabbing kind of thing. But, what's the big picture? What's the ultimate goal here? And how do we get to that goal? Which is always, the goal is what the client wants. And I always try to ask when I'm talking with potential clients, what's your goal? Like, what do you want to see happen here? Now, and obviously most clients are like, well, I want to have the case go away. Okay, but if that can't happen, then what's the next, logical thing? And so you got to keep everything, in perspective. It's, a lot of times balancing expectations. I would love to make every case go away for every client, but it doesn't always happen that way. Some cases you think, oh, this is a dead bang loser, and good things happen. You just never know. You just simply make the best decisions you can with the information you have, and that advice and those decisions change based upon new information. It's what you do in life, but you have to look at it, like I said, sometimes from removing yourself from that emotion of that battle and say, hey, this is the best it's going to get. Yes, we would love to, just step on somebody's neck and just, make your day, but you have to say, well, we can't always do that. So that's the way it is. Let's see. How does a? Oh yeah. How does the question is, how does somebody going about getting a cold case reopened? It just depends. I mean, a cold case is a cold case because the police have no leads. Usually, what happens these days is that somebody in a cold case unit goes back in and sees if there's something that they could do to retest, for example, DNA. Obviously, that's a huge thing today. New information. There's always somebody out there that knows something. Years ago, before DNA, you would always hear about basically somebody, sitting at a bar, telling they get a little drunk and they tell about what they did, really bad night or something along those lines. And ultimately somebody will, tell somebody. Most people can't keep that, if they've done something bad, they can't keep it a secret. They can't keep it to themselves. They have to tell somebody. And so, unless they go to an attorney and tell somebody, that person can go tell whomever they want. If they go tell the police, that's it. There was a case that happened years ago. I remember I was a kid. It was a horrific case. I mean, it was probably 30 plus years ago, and they arrested the guy, and it turned out he was in a case in a prison in Nevada. Same thing. It was DNA. They couldn't prove it then, but they think they can prove it now, and along with some other murders that this person committed. So the big thing is, technology, or if somebody just knows something about it. The Gannon stock, is it stock or Strock? Strock. I'm probably mispronouncing that. But that's a weird case. I mean, children just don't disappear like that. Somebody knows what happened. Unless the kid, started to walk across the ice somewhere, fell in, who knows if, something along those lines, if it was a family member or somebody was abducted. But, the case down Colorado Springs with Gannon stock, the police are obviously investigating it, but they're not out there searching through the woods or doing anything because there's no leads. At a certain point, sometimes the leads dry up, and that's not obviously not reassuring to people that are interested in the case or to the family. Ultimately, it'd be great if we could solve all cases, but sometimes that's just the reality of it. These things take time, and eventually the truth or the pretty darn close version of it will in fact come out. But we just need to wait and see. That's a bizarre case. Somebody knows something. Like I said, I'm assuming somebody will say something to somebody, and that's it. And if somebody did something, hopefully they'll be brought to justice, because that's what the family needs. My experience is the family needs closure, good, bad, or ugly, one way or the other. They need closure. Vanessa Cunningham, thank you for the super chat. We appreciate that. Vanessa, do you have a question? We see those super chats pop up, and they really draw your attention. But if you have a question, let us know as well. And for those of you who are watching, I don't even know how many people we have right now. Do we? 725. If you haven't already subscribed, we'd appreciate it if you go ahead and do that. Like I said, we hit the 75. Next milestone is the 100,000. And obviously, like I said, that doesn't come without hopefully putting up good content that people want to come back and see. Yeah, and obviously, we've done some interviews, with some other YouTubers over the last couple of weeks. Hopefully we have a couple more getting lined up. It's usually a scheduling issue with everybody involved. But, we are trying to do that, trying to bring you relevant information, relevant content every day, or just about every day. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but just about every day. I think we were up to, 350 videos the other day? So almost a year's worth of videos. I think we've talked just about every major case that's gone on, and some smaller ones as well. Let's see, Megan, not to get off too much on the Chris Watts thing, but law enforcement could have recovered Cassinger's text messages and made no effort to do so. What are your thoughts on this? In today's world, it is amazing the amount of information that can be recovered, that is stored not only on your phone, but backed up, for example, in the iCloud. And I think most people know this, that even when you think you have destroyed or cleaned your computer, just because it goes in the trash bin doesn't mean that it's gone yet. Even if you dump it, so to speak, it's still there. And unless it's actually overwritten or cleaned in some particular way, then I can't do it. Now, if somebody's deleted the text messages, unless it's backed up somewhere, those don't exist. Phone carriers don't keep your text messages. They simply keep a record of whether a text message or a phone call went out and how long it lasted and things like that, which cell phone tower it was being based upon. And most law enforcement agencies, this is routine practice these days. I think it's getting more difficult for them as the case law develops, because Obviously, your phone, the Supreme Court has determined you have an expectation of privacy in your phone. Cops can't just say, let me search your phone unless you consent. They can't go get a general warrant and say, we're going to search through your phone. We're not sure exactly what we're going to find, but we'll know it when we see it. You can't do that. That's a general warrant, which is prohibited under the Fourth Amendment. That's what the Founding Fathers didn't want. That's why the British used to come into your house and search it and simply say, we think you've done something against the king. We're going to pilfer around your house for a little bit. We'll find something. We'll let you know when we do. Well, the case law has developed that your phone is like it's protected. You have a greater expectation of privacy. And so the real issue that's really being developed now through the case law is, what expectation of privacy do you have to the cell phone providers, for example, that have your information? They have all this data. They're collecting it not for law enforcement purposes. They're collecting it so that they can make sure that their phone systems work okay. And, usually for maintenance type of situations, they're not in the law enforcement business. But whose information is that? Is that the cell phone providers, or is that your information and that the government needs to go get a warrant for it? We just had a couple of cases recently where, apparently the police departments haven't got the memo, where they basically just asked for a general warrant to search somebody's phone. They found things on there, but guess what? It got thrown out because it was a general warrant. You can't do that. The police have to know what they're looking for, where it is, and what relevance it is to the crime that's committed. You just don't get to look around. I think the law is going to develop that all that data, all that information that these third parties collect, is that it's really your information. Because really, if you think about it, it is your information. They wouldn't have it but for you. But kind of goes back to what I've said before, which is the problem with a lot of these Facebooks and Instagrams and things like that. Why you can never get a customer service person to help you, right? Because you're not the customer, you're the product. They sell all that data to everybody else, which is why you get, if you Google something, you get all these ads. Or if they listen to what you're talking about, they get you start getting ads for things showing up on your phone. I think privacy is going to be the huge issue here over the next 5 years. I think it's going to be more and more privacy for the individuals and less for the now it's going to be more difficult for the government to get your information, because really it is yours. Oh, subscribe. Yes, I agree. The more likes we get, the more we can talk with Scott about lives. I like doing lives, but sometimes it's just tough. Anybody have any idea what's the best time to go live? Should I do it here from the Crime Talk studio, or should I just do it from my laptop, from an undisclosed location in Denver at a house? Or, are Saturday mornings the best? Is, like 9 p.m. Mountain Time the best? Let me know, because, if there's cases that people want to talk about, we can certainly try to do that. Let's see here. See if we can get a couple more questions. We've been going about an hour, and we'll see. He said that you don't trust yours. Is that me? He said, especially towards other women, jealousy is a crazy disease. That's you. I don't trust yours. Oh, I don't know. I think jurors usually make the right decision. I really do. If the judges give you enough time to actually conduct a proper voir dire and get to ask enough questions. We talked about the other day where literally federal judges, like, you can be fair and impartial, can't you? Take a seat. What is somebody going to say to a federal judge? No, I can't be fair and impartial. No, people get scared, and they don't want to look bad. They don't want to look bad. I like that. Somebody loves the lawyer T-shirt. That's kind of my favorite. I like that one. That's what people should say. Say early and often. We talked about it. Anyway. Let's see, Sophie. Anywhere that's convenient for you. It just depends. Let's see. You need to give us a hub about going live. I had no idea I got there. Oh, sorry. I thought we promoted it and we mentioned it yesterday. So just another reason to watch every day. And so that you can do this. And obviously, you'll be able to watch it again afterwards once it cycles through and buffers or something, right? Oh, yeah. You can go to Facebook, Instagram. We're trying to post updates on that as well. So if you want to, if we're going to go up, give. Yeah. If you subscribe to Crime Talk on the Facebook as well as Instagram, we put up stuff, things that we have coming up. But we did mention it yesterday, so just another reason why you should always watch our videos and obviously watch them all the way through as well. And since, most of them are ad-free these days because YouTube likes to demonetize everything that we talk about as not being appropriate for advertisers. So you've got that going for you. Usually no ads. And by the time they get around to figuring out that it is in fact appropriate and not inappropriate, it's usually 2 weeks have gone by. So, it really doesn't matter. Hence the reason why, we need to just get more subscribers, because I think if you get more subscribers, you get more pull with YouTube, and then they realize that there's nothing wrong. We're appealing a video the other day where I did some looking around, and another big channel was talking about the exact same subject that we did, and frankly got into more graphic detail than we did. And he didn't get demonetized. Well, maybe that's because he has like 7 million subscribers. But, little old Scott Reich, we only have, 72,000 or whatever it was at the time. They don't care about us. They say they do, but they don't. Okay, quick question. A lot of people have asked this. Who is the military photo behind you? That is probably one of the greatest Marines ever. Lieutenant General Chesty Puller, all right? He's the Marine, frozen chosen in the Korean War when he was surrounded by the Chinese and the Korean army, and he literally was quoted as saying, "All right, perfect. We've got them right where we want them." He did his fighting retreat to live another day. He has 5 Navy crosses. That's the award right below the Medal of Honor. So the guy is just a stud. His son, unfortunately, didn't fare so well. He was a Marine Corps officer as well, went to Vietnam, was severely injured, I think trying to live up to the legend of Chesty Puller, and ultimately died. I think he had a book called Fortunate Son, and unfortunately he actually took his life a couple years after that. But he had lots of health issues and things of that. It's just, let's see, Scott, you deem me as more of a prosecutor. Oh, no. Oh, no. No. I have been a defense attorney, briefly a prosecutor in the Marine Corps when I was on active duty. But, I don't know. I mean, I've been a defense attorney, and it's been a lot of fun. And when it's not fun, then I'm not going to do it anymore. There's some long days, don't get me wrong, but some really long days and frustrating days, and days you think, why am I doing this? Why do I keep doing this? I should go get a job at Starbucks and just make people happy immediately. Because the toughest thing with this particular job is that it seems like it just seems more and more difficult over the years where people are not happy. They Google something and they think that they're suddenly a lawyer. And they bring in a case and say, look, this is just like my case. And it's like, well, maybe in 1964 in New York, but it has no legal precedental value here in Colorado. Like I said, so everybody is, and I'm not saying I've had some great ideas come from clients. I've had great ideas come from family members of clients. But, when sometimes people just want to ignore the law because they did a Google search on it, or they think that's the way the law should be. There's lots of laws that I think need to be changed, but it's the reality of this is what the law is. And that's what I have to work with. We can certainly try to change the law, but as in the defense side, unless you can get the legislature to fix the law, you have to basically lose. Usually the client goes to prison, and then you appeal, and maybe they agree with you that you were in fact correct. But that takes time. It could take 2 to 5 years to do that. And frankly, who wants the legislature to do anything? The reason why there are so many lawyers that make such a good living is because the legislature writes the worst and the most horrible laws out there that completely it's like they never talk to the people that actually do the stuff on a daily basis. And it's kind of a feel-good thing. And then literally every new statute that comes in, it just creates another decade of litigation. They just need to take their time. The problem is they always want to do some knee-jerk reaction to make everybody feel better about themselves. And all they do is create more confusion and chaos. So just the way it is. And the lovely Miss Kristen is rolling her eyes over here as I speak. But it is the truth.
Saturday morning with Scott Reich.
Oh, Crime and Bubbles, Saturday morning with Scott Reich. Is that like rose all day with Scott and Crime Talk or something? Let's see. Angelina, Robin Cassidy, hello, art and love. Are you ever afraid for your safety? No, not really. I think we talked about this one time a couple weeks ago where I had a situation. It was a murder case, and the family, kind of followed me to the car. And as I'm walking by, as they're leaving, they're, making their finger with a gun. And I called the DA and said, "Hey, just tell your family, back off. It's no big deal." And then, a couple of days later, the DA calls me back. "Ooh, you may want to be concerned about that. They're, apparently some pretty bad dudes." I'm like, "Oh, really?" Thanks. No, I had a client once bring a gun to my office and, set it on the table and said, like, the deal's going to get better. I'm like, yeah, put that away, go. And by the way, I'm no longer your attorney. But generally, no, I'm not worried about anything. It is what it is. Most people aren't that bad. Although I did have a case once where it was horrific. And I won't go into the details. People wouldn't sleep at night, but the family, the father of the family, they were caught bringing in sharp objects through the metal detectors. And I just remember the client was freaking out that somehow, "You're not going to let him get me, are you? You're not going to let him get me." And I'm thinking to myself, really? You're in custody. You're going behind the magic door when we all get done here. And I got to walk to my car. Like, are you kidding me? You're worried about you. But it all worked out just fine. Let's see, Angelina, I've been robbed twice at gunpoint. It's got to be a scary situation for sure. Thank God you're okay. Let's see here. Who's there? She's gorgeous and smart. Wow, Scott's been threatened. Yeah, it is what it is. Most people, you have to remember, in this business, you got a lot of emotion going on. If it's the victim's family, let's think of it. If it's a homicide case, they've just lost a loved one, okay? And even if the rest of the world thinks, man, the guy's, like a gangbanger or whatever and a thug, he's still their loved one. So you have to, be respectful of that. And, you don't do anything that's going to incite any, violence or anything along those lines. If there's going to be issues, the sheriff comes in. People want to keep the decorum. That's what separates us, I like to think. And, sometimes people, they criticize me for, how can you call so-and-so a gentleman? How do you do that? Well, that's what you do in court. It's just, the decorum is kind of what separates us. Only one person talks at a time. You watch these news shows and they're supposedly a mediator, think of it as a judge. And then you have these other people talking over each other constantly. You can't understand what they're saying. It's just common courtesy. That's what a judge does. All right. It's your motion. Make your argument. Are you done? Now the other side gets to make their argument. The judge will ask questions, make the, maybe rebuttal argument. I mean, that's what I do love about going to court is you can have an argument, you can have a disagreement, and most people know that, it's like you're doing your job. It's nothing personal. But there's that decorum, and I think a lot of the world is lacking that decorum. So let's see here. Jen B. Tips on getting out of federal jury duty. My advice, don't try to get out of jury duty. I have talked to lots of jurors over the years, okay? And I have never had anyone who said it was a negative experience. Yes, it seems like it's inconvenient. Maybe now is not the good time to go have jury duty. But I've never had anybody have a negative experience on jury duty because you'll find that the judges are usually very prompt in starting the case. They don't want to inconvenience jurors very much. And you may learn something, and you may get to sit and decide a very interesting or serious case. It's serious to all the parties that are there and involved. And, listen, my advice is don't try to get off jury duty. My advice is if you believe you can be a fair and impartial juror, stay. It's your civic duty, all right? And other than voting, you hear people talk about the Constitution all the time, but other than voting, jury duty is really the only thing where it really kind of rubber meets the road for the everyday citizen. It could be a 1-week trial. It could be a 3-week trial. It could last 1 or 2 days. My advice, go be a juror. I've never sat on jury service. I've never been called up. I would love to do it. I've seen judges that have sat on jury service. Don't try to get out of it. Go answer the questions. If you're fair and impartial, just do it. And if you're selected to be a grand juror where you get to, listen to all the evidence and sign the true bills to do that, I'd say go do that too. They usually only meet maybe once a week, once every couple weeks, once a month to do that kind of thing. So, like I said, it's your civic duty and obligation. Where am I flying to today? I don't think anywhere today, although it's supposed to be a gorgeous day, but have lots of errands to do. Probably should work a little bit as well, but maybe we'll do it tomorrow since tomorrow is supposed to start snowing again here as well. So, see the suffragarian, I can't pronounce their handle there, but it says, I was a 4-person. I enjoyed it, found it and found innocent. Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's go do jury service. You never know. You never know who you could meet. Who knows? You could possibly meet your future, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend. You never know. People sit in those confined spaces, get to see each other. It's kind of like it's like the ultimate dating app or something. You could really see if it works. Let's see. Come to Connecticut, Scott. It may actually get there. May have a civil matter that may take us there. What is a bench trial? A bench trial is a trial to the court, which means you either waive a jury, and then the judge simply decides the case. So they sit as a trier of the law and facts at the same time. I personally don't recommend those. I'd rather, as a defense attorney, I would want the prosecution to prove it to everybody, not just one judge. Now, if you have a case where you think, hey, I got a technical defense, maybe, and you think you get to put on more mitigation so you kind of get the whole thing, maybe a little mitigation, like to find you guilty but make up for it on sentencing, those kinds of things. But, yeah, that's a bench trial. Let's see here. Why the juror's decision should be unanimous if there are different charges. That rule should be changed. Common sense. No, I totally disagree. There are just about all the federal jurisdictions and just about every state. I think the only two relics were Oregon and Louisiana, where the jury did not have to be unanimous. I can tell you in the military, it doesn't have to be a unanimous decision, but it usually works to the favor of the defendant, because in that kind of situation, you can't take a vote until you've discussed it, talked about all the issues, and then you vote. And if they don't have the 2/3 in the military, the automatic decision is not guilty. But I'm a firm believer it should be unanimous. That's just the way it is. And it has to be unanimous for not guilty as well. So, they either proved it or they didn't. I think we start lowering the standard. That's a very, very, it's another just weakening of rights. I don't get that. I don't understand why anyone would want to give up their rights without knowing and voluntarily being made. If somebody said you should give up your First Amendment rights, you can't have your freedom of speech, you can't write, a letter to the newspaper, you can't exercise your religion, I think people would be outraged. But yet people want to give up everybody else's constitutional rights on a daily basis in the name of safety or something along those lines. Who would want to give up their rights? I mean, seriously? Oh, I want to give that up. I'll never need it. Really? Never. Never, never, never give up your rights. It has to be knowingly and voluntarily made, and you have no right to give up somebody else's rights. That's just crazy. All right. Okay, Lori Vallow. Well, for those who tuned in late, we did talk quite a bit about the Lori Vallow matter and gave kind of a timeline of the events. So when this is done and complete, you can go back and watch that again. But yeah, the question was that her lawyer present yesterday in court? Yes, at least the attorney in Hawaii that's been retained to address the extradition issues. She also wants to have a bond hearing. That attorney requested that the bond hearing be set as early as Monday. The judge set it out 2 weeks to March 2nd. That gives the prosecutor in Hawaii, who understand this case just landed on his desk, all right? It's an extradition matter. He's probably just a line deputy DA. Like he had the duty that day. Here it is. And so he, other than what he's read from the affidavits that have been filed with the court, he probably has no personal knowledge. So he needs to get those detectives, get more information, at least for bond. If there's going to be a hearing, they'll have, 90 days to get the governor's warrant. If she can't make bond, she'll have to sit there and, the governor of Idaho has to send the paperwork. Hawaii has to accept it, get all their little fancy seals put on it, and get her there. But she's going back to Idaho, okay? She can say she's going to fight extradition, but she's going to Idaho. And this is another thing that we talk about a lot here in the office is there's an easy way and there's a hard way. And why does it seem like everybody always picks the hard way? I just don't get it, It's probably the thing that causes me the most frustration of anything. Like, hey, this witness, will you talk to me? I'm trying to save you to being subpoenaed to court. No, I'm not talking to you. Okay, fine. Here's your subpoena. Make sure you show up at 8 a.m. and you can sit out in the hallway for the rest of the week until I need to call you. And since I don't really know what I'm going to say, I'm not really sure if I'm going to call you, so you may sit out there the entire time. But I need you as a witness. So, you sure you wouldn't like to talk with me? Well, I guess I can talk with you. Like I said, after 25 years of doing this, I have a pretty good idea of the way things are going to turn out. But everybody always chooses the hard way. I just don't get it. They think they're going to prove a point. They're going to do it. Like, hey, I get it. You want to play games? I got more games than Milton Bradley. Game on. Let's do this thing, all right? But it's the most thing that most frustrates me the most is just doing it the hard way. Everybody always picks the hard way to do it, when normally we could resolve it the easy way. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up here. We've been going for over an hour. First of all, thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully you got something out of it. It wasn't just me talking the entire time, tried to answer questions. And hopefully you enjoyed it. I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time. I do appreciate and understand that there is a lot of stuff out there on YouTube, on the internet. So the fact that you take the time to watch our little show here, we do truly appreciate it. And that does not is not taken for advantage or in any way. We do truly appreciate it. So, please subscribe if you haven't done so. Leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think. Buy that merchandise. I've got the official Crime Talk mug here full of Red Bull. I haven't really had a drink of it all day. But, if you want the same Crime Talk mug and you don't want to be a dumb criminal contestant of the week but still like the mug, you can do that. Then you can send us pictures and you can send it to us, and we'll put it up on our mug shots on the Instagram and Facebook. You can carry your mug with you and take pictures of it, like where you go to work. We'll put it up. We appreciate that. You can also go to our Patreon page if you want to do that, but you don't have to. But if you do, it's greatly appreciated. There's various levels there, and if you sign up, for that particular level, we'll get the stuff, the merchandise that you get out to you very quickly. And even the top levels, you get to, basically talk with me, and we'll make time. And hell, you pay me enough on the Patreon, we'll come see you. We'll come out in Crime Talk 1 and go have lunch. That'd be fabulous. So, we'll bring the lovely Miss Kristen. It'll be fabulous. And it'll be a good time. So, I appreciate everyone for watching. Truly do appreciate it. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll talk to you Monday on Crime Talk.